guys, today I'm going to cover printing to the Zebra LP-2844 thermal label printer. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to write a quick little app. I'll put it in a Windows Form app. I'm using Visual Studio 2019 Community Edition. C#. I select Windows Forms. Next. Let's see here. Call this Zebra. Testing. All right. Let's change the text at the top of the form. Zebra testing. And we're going to come down here and have it open up and center location. And what we're going to do is have a very simple label print off. With this, you can use a 4x6 label, or what I'm using is 1 inch by 2 inch label for this particular print. You can start off with a 4x6, and I recommend doing that when getting to learning the way that the Zebra printer prints and the location at which it prints. This thing is very tricky, or was very tricky for me when I was trying to figure out the coding for it. It's all done on the XY basis of location and printing. So if it's not within the range of the label, it just doesn't print anything at all. It'll send out the empty label on you, and you have to kind of tune it in to work for you. So what I'm going to do here is basically make sort of a inventory label with a barcode. It's going to have a brand name, a description, SKU number, inventory number, and a print button. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start adding some labels. We'll create a brand. And let's see here. Create a description box. And a SKU. Want to come down here and give each one a name so you can reference it in the code for the text box. So here's a brand. Let's do a description. Make it short, abbreviate it. Let's add a button. We'll just leave it named button 1. And the text print. And let's line it up a little bit so it keeps it somewhat organized. Yep. See here. Okay, that should serve our purpose there. And I'll just drag that over here. Alright, we'll double click this, create an event, and I will bring out the method which I'm going to use. And the tricky thing about printing to the zebra is you're sending raw data to a printer. Instead of reinventing the wheel here, people are using the raw printer helper, and I'll put a link in the description below to where you can get the raw printer helper. But right here, as you can see, it's at GitHub. So you'll want to come over here and copy this code. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a class, go up to your project, click add class, and of course we're going to call this the raw printer helper. Click add, and you're going to want to make that a public class. And what you're going to want to do is add some using statements at the top. You want the using system runtime interrupt services and the system IO. And what we're going to do is copy in the code from GitHub. Alright, so now you have your raw printer helper. This brings in all the Windows DLLs that will open a printer, close a printer, start a dock, end a dock, start a page printer, end a page printer, writer helper, or sorry, writer printer. This is where it sends the raw bytes of data to the printer, and this is where you send the file to the printer, sending a string to a printer. Alright, so let's get on with the code that I figured out that would work with the raw printer helper and the zebra printer. So the first thing I'm going to do is add in my method, and I'll explain to you everything that I know about the zebra printer. One of the key things I would like to point out before I start is that it is, if you don't have the printer, it is important to get it from the right supplier. You can find some cheap ones on eBay and everything, but you may want to pay a little bit more and get some support with it and the correct firmware loaded on it, and the drivers that'll come with it. I put a link in the description below from the company that I bought it from. I'm not affiliated with them at all. I saw somebody else on YouTube and they were just touting how much support they got out of this company. Like when I first ordered mine, it came with a bad power cord, and they shipped one out to me right away. I didn't even have to wait for them to send it. They went ahead and sent it. They said, just go ahead and send us back the old one. We'll go ahead and send you the new one. I sent it back to them, and I had mine before, I think it was like 2 days, and it had to be before they got the one back from me. But they sent it out with the most recent firmware they had for it. They sent it out with a disk that you can load on your computer with all the current drivers, a lot of PDF files to read through, but a great company. They're in the link in the description below if you want to get it from them. But I highly recommend that you get it from somebody that can do that, because that's very important to have the latest firmware and everything on there. With the firmware that they send it out with, it will print QR codes, barcodes. It'll do the everything that a zebra printer should do. With that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, let's create the method. Do some error handling here. Let's get the message out of the computer. Alright. So the first thing we're going to do is set up our variables to grab the information from the text boxes. From here you can do some validation if you want, just to make sure that they're sending in something. So here, call brand second one. Skew. Okay. First thing I'm going to do is add to the skew if it's not a total of, I think it's like 11 characters. And then that way it'll fill up the skew number. So what I do is I pad it with zeros if the skew number itself isn't equal to 11 characters. Next thing you're going to want to do is set up a string builder. SB string builder. Alright, what I do is I add in a print dialog, so it opens up the print dialog box. Then that way you can choose which printer it's going to validate that it is going to your label printer, not some regular document printer that you have. So we'll open up a printer dialog. Okay, we're going to want to grab the information from the printer dialog. So we'll go into printer dialog, printer settings equals new, and we'll add in the system. Drawing, printing, and settings. That'll grab everything from your printer. Okay. First thing you got to do is append, and what I'm going to do here is, you want to append a line. The Zebra printer expects a blank line on the first one. We're going to append a line again. And what we need to do first is clear out the image buffer in the printer. So if you want to clear it out, all you have to do is put it in. It'll create a new image buffer for you by clearing it out. So we'll go ahead and put that in there. clear out the image buffer. Then we'll come down here and set the form width. Now, if you need a definition for everything that the Zebra printer does, I recommend you go to the Zebra website and download the EPL programming guide. It is free from Zebra. Just download it, and it'll tell you how to do 1,000 different things with the printer. It took me a little while to figure out exactly to get it to do what I want to do, but the documentation is there. And with the form width, you'll have to play around with it and get it to work for what you want it to do, but for what I'm doing, I put it in as 425. Okay, let's append another line. And what we're going to do here is set the form length. So this was Q, capital Q, 300. And you can play with this settings here and get exactly what you want out of it for length and width. Okay, now that you have that set up, what you're going to want to do is you have to feed the printer a number of variables here. I'll go ahead and define the variables so that you have something to refer back to. But you want to put in some ASCII characters. So if you're like, we're pulling from the text box up here, so we're going to want to grab these ASCII characters so it prints out to the printer. So I'll go ahead and define it for you. And with the Zebra printer, A is the definition for the ASCII characters. And then attached to the A, you want to put in the starting point at which it starts printing on your label. On my particular label, since I'm using a 1" by 2", very small, but if you can get it to fit on there, you can get it to fit on anywhere. But that's why I was telling you, you might want to start off with a 4x6 label, because then you can get it printing and then narrow it down from there. But on mine, it's a 26 starting point. And I'll just go ahead and define it. Then you're going to want to put in the vertical. Then you're going to want to put in the rotation. You can rotate the characters on there. With what I'm doing, you don't really need to rotate it, so I'll put a 0 as a value there. Then you have your font selection. You can play around with that too and get what you want. Then you're going to have the horizontal, what they call the multiplier. And what this does is it expands text horizontally. Next you have the vertical multiplier, and that expands it vertically. Next is reverse image. Alright, next will be the data that you put in. So what we're grabbing from the text box, basically. That's the definition of what you'll be sending in for the ASCII characters. With the barcode, it's slightly different, so I'll define that for you too. So what you want to do is use your string builder, pin to line, and what you're going to want to do, let's see here, string, got to format it. Format. And culture info dot you need to put in the using statement for using system globalization, and invariant culture, and here's where we put in our values. We'll go ahead and kick it down to the next line so that we have that there. So here's where you put in your definition. So A26, that is my starting point and telling it ASCII characters. Next is a vertical starting point, and this is where you'll place it vertically on your label. Kind of got to play around with that to get it to go where you want it to go on your label. Rotation, like I said, is 0. I'm not rotating my characters. And then the horizontal multiplier, I came up with a 4. Or sorry, that's the font. That's for the font that I want. And then with the horizontal and vertical, 1, 1. And then reverse image is normal. So you put in an N. And then what you want to do is, since you're formatting it, you're going to want to bring in your data. And this is where you will throw in your data. That's going to be for the brand. And that should do it for brand. So you're going to want to repeat the steps for your description and since it uses a different area, this is where you're going to adjust your numbers here. So it's still A26 because it's still ASCII characters. You want it to be lined up. So you're going to use 26 on both. And then for your vertical starting point, you're going to want it lower than the previous one. So increase the number. And like I said, you'll have to play around with that a little bit. I'm still using the same font characters, no rotation. The multipliers are set to 1 and normal reverse image. And then over here, you're going to want to put in your description. Okay. So now we're going to get to the barcode. Let's define the barcode parameters. And with a barcode, you put in a B, and then you got a start point attached to it. Then you have the vertical start position. Rotation, and then you defined your barcode. I'm using the code 128 barcode. Just your standard barcode. If you go through the EPL programming guide, you can get QR codes and all that, and you'll have to set up the parameters correctly for it. But this is what works with the code 128. You're going to want to set it, the mode on that too. Next is a barcode width. And then your wide bar code. Width. And then you have to set the barcode height. And then you're going to want to set it as print human readable. And B equals yes on the barcode readable, because you want it barcode where you can read it with your eyes. And then you'll pass in the data. Simple as that. SB dot pin line. And you can just copy above here. Make it easy. And what you want to do is first do your barcode and set the starting point. If you don't get these exactly right on your label, it just sends out a label. There's nothing on it. This is where you have to kind of tune it in and adjust it to fit on your label. And until it does, it doesn't put the barcode on the label. So vertical starting point for mine was a 13. no rotation, and then the barcode selection was a 1A. Then you want to do the width, the barcode wide width, then the height. I set mine to 50, and then this one has the B character in there for making it human readable. Then you put another comma and it'll bring in your description. Next, what you want to do is you want to tell the label printer to print all this. So inline. So the command to print is P1, and I only want one label, so I put in 1. So quantity. Okay. Here's where the raw printer comes into play. So first, we'll add in a if statement showing that the dialog result is okay. So dialog result dot okay equals PD show dialog this, and let's call the raw printer helper the class you set up earlier. And what you want to choose is send string to printer. Printer dialog, printer settings, printer name, pass in the name of the printer, and then your string builder. We'll go ahead and make sure that it is string, even though we know it is, but pass it in, and there you go. It should be good to go to print. So click start. All right, for the brand, call it Ralph Lauren men's shirt. And with the text boxes, you'll want to set it up for max length on the characters that a text box will receive, or else it'll just print right off the edge of your label. So 4, 5, 6, and then you click print. Oh, you know what I did? I didn't even put this over here on the print event. Paste. There we go. Start again. LP-2844, and click print. It'll open up this. This is where you want to make sure your zebra printer's in there. And then you click OK. And you could hear it print off. I'll show you how it printed off in just a second. And there you go. Happy printing.